This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. A cattle market update from Tyler Cozzens, Director of the Livestock Marketing Information Center, begins today's show as he notes key points regarding cattle on feed, global production and trade, as well as cow slaughter. Jason Warner, K-State Extension cow-calf specialist, continues the show as he chats about the use of MGA for preparing heifers for breeding. Ending the show is a segment of Faces in Agriculture with Callie Miller, K-State student originally from Butler County, as she discusses her involvement and growth in agriculture and what she would share with others wanting to be a part of the industry. That and more is coming up ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Monday show with the cattle market update from Director of the Livestock Marketing Information Center, Tyler Cozzens. Tyler, thanks for joining us today.
For having me on. I appreciate it.
Tyler, at the end of last week, we got a cattle on feed report, and what did you see within that report?
Yeah, so this is that cattle on feed report that gives us that snapshot of supplies as of April 1st, the start of the month there. So it's kind of that once a month report that we're always looking for is just overall supplies. And so what the report showed us was that actual cattle on feed as of April 1st was just below 11.6 million head. That's actually down about 0.5% from a year ago. That falls within line of pre-report estimates. Analysts are actually expecting it to be down about 0.3%. So fairly in line with expectations there. Similar discussion there on placements. Came in at just over 1.7 million head. That's actually down just over 7% from a year ago. Analysts were expecting it to be down just under 7%, but still within that range of expectations there. You know, probably what's driving a lot of that decline there is still some of that continued decline of just overall cattle flows from Mexico as that border remains closed. So kind of one of those trends that we're seeing here for the better part of year. On the marketing side of things, came in at just over 1.6 million head. That's down about 5.5%. Analysts were actually expecting it to be down a little bit more, about just over 6%, but still was within line of expectations there as far as the range goes there. So by and large, report kind of in line with what analysts were expecting. So really no big surprises there. So kind of good news on that front. No big surprises there. But one of the other things I want to talk about on the cattle on feed report was this is one of the quarterly reports that we get. And in a quarterly report, it breaks out the number of steers and heifers on feed, right? So specifically, we're trying to look at the number of heifers that are on feed. And so that came in at just over 4.3 million head for the quarter. That's actually only down 60,000 head from a year ago. So kind of one of those things that matrices that we're looking at is just the percentage of heifers that are on feed. And that was 37.3% compared to 37.6% compared to a year ago. So really no big changes there. But we're keeping an eye on this one largely from a herd rebuilding effort, right? If we see a few less heifers coming in, might signal some retention of heifers for rebuilding efforts. But by and large, this report falling in line with what we were seeing a year ago, really no big indication of just of actual retention of heifers there. So kind of overall, this cattle on feed report was in line with pre-report expectations, signaling a measured flow of cattle through the supply chain. And kind of as I noted there, percentage of heifers on feed was similar to a year ago, which isn't giving us a clear signal of heifer retention for herd rebuilding efforts. But it's one of those things we'll be watching on the supply side of things, especially as this drought situation continues to develop here, especially in the western part of the country. Might change up some of the flows of cattle, specifically heifers, through the supply chain.
Taking an even bigger picture look at the market, what are we seeing globally for production and trade?
Twice a year, we get a report from USDA's Foreign Ag Service. The report is called their Livestock and Poultry World Markets and Trade Report. So this report details global livestock supplies, meat production, and trade for cattle and beef, hogs and pork, and chicken meat. So let's dive into the report and kind of what it told us. So looking here first off at global beef production and exports. Global beef production is forecast in 2026 to decline about just over 1%. To 61.6 million metric tons. The report notes that decreasing production in Brazil, the United States, China, and the European Union and Australia will more than offset increases in India, Mexico, and New Zealand. So kind of looking a little bit closer at some of the overall beef production on a country basis, Brazil's production is actually forecast down 2% to 12.4 million tons. But it should be noted that this comes after a record production year in 2025. So despite the forecasted decline, Brazil is expected to remain the world's largest beef producer. Australia, their beef production is forecasted to decrease about 1% to just under 3 million tons on reduced cattle slaughter. EU's production is forecast down 1% as well, as high input costs and regulatory pressures are expected to limit growth. And lastly, Mexico's production is forecast to increase 11% this year as the closure of the U.S.-Mexico border to live cattle trade has increased availability of slaughter supplies, slaughter-ready cattle there in Mexico. So kind of looking at the export side on the beef things, global beef exports are forecast to fall marginally in 2026, less than 1% to just under 14 million metric tons, which FAS notes is due to reductions in Brazil, Australia, the United States, and the European Union, which are expected to outweigh increases in India, Argentina, New Zealand, and Mexico. Now, the report further noted that China is expected to remain the top global beef importer at just over 3 million metric tons in 2026. That's actually down about 12.5% from last year. FES also noted that the forecasted decline in China's beef imports are due to a series of tariff rate quotas that will limit its imports, particularly from Brazil and Australia, which is expected to impact global trade flows. So now kind of switching out of the beef side of things and talking about global pork production and trade. Global pork production is forecasted to increase in 2026 here to just over 120 million metric tons. This is an increase of less than 1% from last year. FAS noted that the increased production globally is due to increased production in the United States, Brazil, China, and Canada, which are expected to offset lower production in the European Union. Some further notes on global production. Brazil's pork production is forecast to increase 3% to 4.9 million tons as abundant feed supplies and strong international demand supports growth. China's pork production is forecast to increase higher to almost 60 million tons as improvements in pigs per litter is anticipated to lead to higher slaughter, albeit slightly lower weights given pressure to reduce production. Canada's pork production is forecast 2% higher to just over 2 million metric tons as marginally higher sow stocks and steady pigs per litter growth will increase animals for slaughter. EU's pork production is forecast 1% lower to almost 22 million metric tons, given based on tighter profit margins and ample supplies for pork within the EU. Now, looking at the trade side of things, global pork exports are forecast to increase marginally in 2026 by less than 1% to just over 10 million metric tons. FAS is expecting that stronger shipments from Brazil, the United States, and Canada will offset lower exports from the European Union. And specifically kind of looking at some of the global pork exporters, Brazil's exports are forecast to increase 7% in 2026 due to gains in market access and strong price competitiveness compared to other major exporters. Canada exports are forecast to rise 4% due to greater exportable supplies, improved global market access, and EU exports are forecast to go down about 8% based on reduced exportable supplies and disease-related trade restrictions, which will limit their export potential. So kind of rounding out some of the discussion on global meat supplies, looking at chicken meat production. Global chicken meat production is forecasted to increase about 2.5% to almost 111 million metric tons here in 2026. FES noted that China is the world's second largest producer of chicken meat, significantly behind the United States and often on par with Brazil. However, China production is forecast to rise well above Brazil in 2026. Vast China production supports consumption for its population of 1.4 billion people, which is approximately 7% of the world population. Now, global chicken meat exports are forecast to rise about 3.5% to almost 15 million metric tons in 2026. This is expected to be led by both China and Brazil. The report from FAS noted that in 2025, China's top markets for chicken meat were Japan, Hong Kong, Russia, and the EU, with no other market accounting for more than 5% of their shipments. This is a vastly different export profile compared to 2020, when Japan and Hong Kong accounted for 42 and 37% of shipments, respectively. So overall, USDA FAS is forecasting tighter global beef supplies, but marginally higher global supplies for both pork and chicken, with global meat trade flows expected to remain dynamic.
Tyler, then looking at cow slaughter for the cattle market, what are you keeping an eye on?
Yeah, so we're always kind of keeping an eye on cow slaughter, right? Because this kind of ties into just overall herd retention, but also just some of those support for beef supplies through the rest of the year. So kind of looking at cow slaughter, since the start of the year, total cow slaughter has been trending below year-ago levels, with the year-to-date total through March at almost 1.2 million head. That's actually down about 57,000 head, or about 5% compared to the same period last year. Total cow slaughter is comprised of both beef cow and dairy cow slaughter. Since the start of the year, beef and dairy cow slaughter have been trending in different directions. So kind of looking at beef cow slaughter, year to date through March, beef cow slaughter has totaled about 480,000 head, which is a decline of 17%, or nearly 100,000 head from the same period in 2025. Now switching and looking at dairy cow slaughter, on the other hand, year to date dairy cow slaughter has actually been up about 7%. Or just over 42,000 head compared to the same period last year to 692,000 head. So although dairy cow slaughter is up year to date, it has been more than offset by the decline in beef cow slaughter. So kind of rounding out some of this discussion on beef cow slaughter, right? Overall, we're looking at this, right, because we're seeing still a strong demand profile for ground beef products. And so we're largely expecting that to remain strong here, and keeping an eye on that here in the near term, especially as we start to approach the summer grilling season. And so, the demand holding strong is expected to support overall slaughter cow values through 2026.
Tyler, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That was Director of the Livestock Marketing Information Center, Tyler Cozzens. If you'd like to learn more about LMIC, you can do so by heading to their website, LMIC.info. Once again, that is LMIC.info. We're cutting to a short break now, but stick around because we have more for you up ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our show with timely reminders for getting heifers ready for breeding from K-State Extension cow-calf specialist Jason Warner. Jason, thanks for joining us today.
Appreciate it, Shelby. Thanks for the opportunity to be on, as always.
Jason, already thinking about getting those heifers ready for breeding and then eventually will be to calving, but what might producers want to be thinking about right now?
Yeah, Shelby. So I really just wanted to take the opportunity to discuss today some important timely reminders on the use of a product that is used pretty extensively across the industry, and specifically when we think about some of our synchronization protocols that we have for our replacement heifers. One that's used pretty widely, and that product is MGA, or also referred to as melangestrol acetate. And so melangestrol acetate is the compound that is in that product, and it's sold under the trade name or label name of MGA. And so a lot of producers will resonate, or they will recognize the word MGA, and that is a product that's been around for a long time. Really was one of the earliest synchronization protocols that we have out there in the industry, was developed with the use of MGA. And historically, as we think about it, MGA is a product that has been used very widely across the feedlot industry, because it's approved for feeding feedlot heifers to suppress or control estrus, and to minimize the negative effects of reduced average daily gain and poor feed efficiency in these feedlot heifers, because we don't want those females coming in and having active estrus cycles while we want those heifers on feed. And so it's been used in the feedlot industry for a number of years, and certainly when we think about it on the cow-calf side of the industry, has been used as well too, and really just a good, practical, cost-effective product that can be used. But a few important things that I think we want to keep in mind when we think about the use of MGA in these replacement heifers is that, number one, so as we think about it from a labeling standpoint, MGA is only approved for beef and dairy replacement heifers when we think about breeding females. And so it's not approved for mature cows. but it's approved for these replacement heifers, and the reason for that is simply just due to research that has been put into that product has primarily been focused on the beef and dairy replacement heifer. And so simply from a labeling standpoint, the parent companies that own the parent company that owns MGA, or the parent company that initially developed MGA, primarily focused its use for replacement heifers.
Is there some, per se, pre-planning that needs to take place to get this protocol correct for heifers?
That's a very good question, Shelby, and absolutely there is. And so this is a protocol strategy that I really encourage producers, as we always do when we think about our synchronization protocols, to make sure that they are planning well out in advance of when they're going to actually breed those females, because there's a pretty long period of time with the use of our MGA protocols that we want to make sure that we are planning for. And so as you take a look at it, a really good resource for folks to take a look at with regards to our synchronization protocols is beefrepro.org, and that's the website for the Beef Reproductive Task Force. You can access that website through our beef extension website here at K-State, and that's ksubeef.org. But if you take a look at it and you look at those heifer protocols, we really have 4 different options with how we can breed those females if we decide to use MGA. But regardless of which of the methods that we use to breed those females, because we can either just simply heat detect those females, we can do a combination of heat detection and fixed time AI, we can do fixed time AI only, or we can breed those females via natural service. So we have 4 different options there if we decide to use MGA. But regardless of which method that we use to breed those females, if we feed MGA, we've got a 14-day feeding period up front, and then we have a period that will range anywhere from 14 to 19 days on the back end after we feed that MGA, in which that product must not be fed. We have to have a clearance period there for that synthetic progestin to clear the system. So what we do when we feed MGA, it's a synthetic progestin, and so what it does is it inhibits or suppresses estrus. And so we have to make sure that we have a clearance period after we feed that product for that approved time window before we finish the rest of that synchronization protocol. And so the rest of the methods there, which typically involve a shot of prostaglandin, and then of course, if we're gonna fix time AI those females, we've got a shot of GnRH or an injection of GnRH when we go to AI those females at that time period too, if we do a fixed time AI event. But the main thing that we want to keep in mind is that there's always that 14-day feeding period up front, and then again that clearance period after that. And so we always want to make sure that we're building that into our schedule when we're thinking about getting that product and making sure that we've got that product in inventory and ready to go so we can use it when needed, so we can stay on track with when we want to breed those females based on our desired time of calving. So I really encourage producers to always make sure that they're having a good conversation with their feed service provider well in advance of the start of the breeding season. Make sure that they understand what the method that they're going to deliver this product is. And so we've got some label restrictions that we want to make sure that we follow with regards to use of MGA. We need to be right at a 0.5 milligram per head per day of MGA that we actually deliver into those females. And so it works best if we're managing those females in a dry lot or in a pen situation, and we're feeding them a total mixed ration, or if we're supplementing those females daily. And so that's really the management situation there, where the use of MGA works really well because it has to be delivered through the feed. And so we have to make sure that we can get that product into the females at a consistent rate every day. And we want to make sure that we get it thoroughly mixed into the diets, that we have good effective consumption, good consistent consumption, to make sure that we do a good job of suppressing estrus up front during that time period, to make sure that on the back end of it we have a good effective response. And so 0.5 milligram per head per day And we want to make sure that we understand how we're going to feed that product, if it's going to be mixed into a total mixed ration or if it's going to be supplemented via a cube or a pellet. And oftentimes through our feed service providers or through our feed distributors, there are products that are pre-manufactured either in a cube or a pellet form. And so you just want to make sure that you read and follow the label directions and understand what those feeding directions are so that you feed it in the proper manner.
Why might a cattle producer choose this protocol method over a different one?
It's a very cost-effective protocol and one that has been widely researched, has been around for a long time, and it's one that I think for producers, if they're managing those heifers in a dry lot or in a pen situation, if they're delivering a TMR to those females versus if they've got those females turned out on grass and they're in a grazing situation, can work really, really well there too. And so just a good, practical, cost-effective protocol that works really well. And as you look at the research data, the response there has been really consistent, and a lot of producers over the course of time have certainly had really good success rates with the protocol. And so I think, again, a few things that we just want folks to keep in mind is that we have some options on what I would call the back end of the protocol for how you can inseminate and breed those females. And again, that can consist of either just a basic heat detection period, or we can do heat detection in conjunction with fixed timed AI, or we can just do a fixed timed AI event, or if we want to just expose those heifers to bulls for natural service breeding, we can get that done too. So we've got some options there, but it's got to be fed for 14 days, has to be a clearance period on the back end of it, and we want to make sure we're at 0.5 milligram per head per day, and that we're being very, very diligent and thorough and consistent with how we are getting that product into those females. But again, beefrepro.org or ksubeef.org are two really good resources that I encourage folks to go to for further details on those protocols. Make sure that you're reaching out to either your local extension agent, your local extension office, or your area or state beef cattle specialist in your region. There's some really good resources there to be able to help navigate folks and make sure that we're doing things right and getting our timelines and our protocols set well in advance of the breeding season to make sure that we've got good reproductive success and good pregnancy rates here this coming up breeding season.
Jason, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Appreciate it, Shelby. Thanks, as always.
That was K-State Extension cow-calf specialist Jason Warner. As he mentioned, you can find more resources by going to beefrepro.org or by going to ksubeef.org. I will link both websites in today's show notes on agtoday.net. We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be right back. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we conclude our Monday show with a segment of Faces in Agriculture. And this week, we're joined by a K-State student in agribusiness, originally from Butler County, Callie Miller. Callie, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Callie, can you tell us a little bit about your involvement in agriculture?
Yeah, so I've grown up on what started as a Sim Angus operation, family owned. We transitioned into raising purebred Hereford cattle when I was old enough to start showing, and we've been involved ever since. We run about 50 head of cow-calf pairs, sprinkled in a handful of goats and sheep every now and then, but yeah.
What has it been like growing up in agriculture?
It's awesome. It's taught me so many leadership roles. The memories that I've made, the people that I've met have truly paved the way for what is going to come as I continue into jobs. It's my communication skills and my ability to work with anybody and everybody has all come from the agriculture.
What have been some life lessons you've gotten to learn in agriculture?
Being involved in ag my family put me through the 4-H program, and some of the biggest lessons I've learned is I actually filled out a scholarship that asked a question similar to this, and it's my ability to not only keep my emotions steady, but communicate from any side of a perspective, even if it's not what I agree with, and be able to have a conversation, see it from other people's point of views, and be able to just keep a clear, open mindset.
What have been some challenges you faced growing up in agriculture or just being involved in that industry?
Not everybody's going to agree, especially in the show cattle industry. There's a lot of unethical things that are happening, and you're going to come across that anywhere. I think one of the biggest issues in agriculture right now, though, is when people are not wanting to see agriculture for what it is. They're wanting to change it. They think agriculture is harmful. And so I think being able to focus on those people and trying to push like, hey, this truly is a good industry. We're not out here to harm any of the animals is one of the biggest issues that we are facing right now.
As someone who's currently in college, if you're talking with someone in high school, what advice or encouragement would you have for them if they're wanting to stay in the industry?
Step outside your comfort zone. There are degree paths, even if you would think that they are not agriculture related, that can take you anywhere in the ag industry. Like my focus right now is in finance, but I didn't want anything to do with sitting in a bank. There are opportunities, even if you're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to stay involved in ag. There are opportunities. Take the opportunities, go out, meet people, and you will be surprised at how far it can take you.
What have been some foundational points for you, Callie, for having the encouragement and the support to continue forward showing cattle?
I've always had people behind me that strive to and push me to be the best that I possibly can. So having that support system and people that are always there to step up if I need help and push me, try and make me better, not only as a showman, a livestock judge, but just as a person in general has been truly beneficial.
What makes you excited as you look forward for yourself and others in agriculture?
I think there's still a lot of good coming from the ag industry. It's ever evolving. New technology is helping it change so much. And I think that makes it truly exciting because especially like us in the show cattle world, there are different technologies and new bulls coming out every day that can allow us to enhance everything that we have worked on and take it to the next level and just improve, everything in the ag industry.
If someone was wanting to get involved in agriculture, what would be your first recommendation?
I would say just probably off of one of my previous answers, go out and meet people because there are a lot of people out there that are involved with that. Go out, meet somebody, even if it's somebody you don't know, visit with them, go have a look around their property, their farm, and maybe spend a couple hours with them and make sure that it's truly what you want to do. But at the same time, you don't have to have a farm to be involved in agriculture. Foods, gardening, all of that is also ag. So if it's a hobby, do it. You never know. You could already be involved.
Callie, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me.
That was K-State student in agribusiness, originally from Butler County, Callie Miller. That's all we have for you today on Agriculture Today, but we'll be back with more for you tomorrow.